let's just quickly segue into what you do in your professional life. This is what you do kind of for a living, is communications.
Yeah.
What's your company?
Yeah, so I'm Miller Public Relations is my company. I founded it.
Miller.
It's lowercase I, capital M,
Okay.
Miller Public Relations, or like I like to say it, IMPR. And we do international marketing public relations for global telecom and technology companies.
Okay.
And so we're now in 5 years in business, and we've got 26 people. We've got clients all over the world. Yeah, we represent clients in Asia to Europe, all across the United States. Yeah, it's really, really.
So that's
honor.
part of why you can't continue too, because you travel a great deal.
Unfortunately, yes. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, the village deserves people to serve them in a way that they can give that time to look at the issues and to interact with them. And for instance, tomorrow night we have a meeting, and I'm off to Canada. Next week there's another meeting, and I'm off somewhere. So, you know, missing meetings is not something I'm proud of. I try to accommodate them, but the village deserves people who can be there.
Yeah.
It requires work.
It's about showing up. Yeah, it's true. Well, good for you for acknowledging that and you know, being honest about it. Let's just talk about there's been a lot of sturm and drang about these 2 referendum that are coming up. Can you just explain them a bit? What one is about appointing to boards and commissions?
Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion out there about what these are. And this board, the majority of this board, I should say, thought that it was going to be in the best interest of our community to vote on whether or not appointments to boards, whether interim appointments or initial appointments, should be made solely by the mayor. There's a couple of issues there.
Let me stop you for a second.
Sure.
When I was on a board, that was a majority of the board decision.
Yes, something happened in about, I want to say, 2009, 2010 timeframe.
Okay, so that was after me and before you.
Yes, there was a change in the law, and the change was made during the current mayor's, you know, reign over the village here. And we call it a reign because sometimes it feels like that. While he's done really good things, this is one of the things that I think is anti what this village needs. When the village formed a village manager form of government, the idea was that the village manager would be the equivalent of the CEO, and the mayor would be the chairman of the board. And the chairman of the board helps to run meetings efficiently, helps to steer the board and the village in the right direction, and to be a true leader when it comes to being the mayor, being the spokesperson, and being out there in the face of the village. I think the mayor does a really good job of being the face of the village. I think as a leader, he crosses the line from time to time. He doesn't have a clear sense of what the majority of this village needs and should have, and therefore there's an opportunity for him to take advantage of that. And when you can take advantage of things, you know, you can turn an almost $1 billion loss into no taxes for 18 to 20 years, right? You know, those are loopholes.
Well, you know what it comes down to too, in my taking, you know, the personalities out of it, is that, you know, you have a bunch of people elected, and they represent collectively a point of view.
Yes.
And that point of view, the majority of that point of view, should be represented in those appointments. Because, you know, if a person is pro or anti-development and they become mayor, and they get to appoint the people to those boards and commissions, which are very, you know, I used to always say I want to leave the board of trustees some days and get a position with real power. I want to go to the zoning board.
Or the planning board, yeah.
And, you know, so if only one person, you only get in one person's point of view, because he's going to appoint like-minded people.
Exactly.
So those appointments do not reflect the majority of the board, which in theory, that majority of the board represents the majority of the voters out there.
Yes, and for those who know the importance of the majority of certain boards, and especially in the land use boards, and for a mayor who has sole discretion to appoint those, there are ways that you can orchestrate things to go into your own personal interest and favor. And so some of the things that we've seen over the past few years is a very well-adversed mayor who knew how to work the system. So prior to the organizational meetings, we would suddenly get resignations from the various land use boards so that he could unanimously appoint individuals to replace those positions and therefore set it up for the next term that, oh, we don't need the board's blessing on this. It's the mayor's discretion, and this is what we are trying to stop, or trying to raise awareness of the village.
But if there's an open seat on a board, does he get to?
Right now, if there's an open seat on the land use boards, it's the mayor's sole discretion to put a replacement in that.
I'm not saying a replacement. What I'm saying is when a term expires.
When a term expires, it's the board has the ability to approve the person or not. If we
But it's
do
the mayor's
not,
appointment.
it's the mayor's appointment. If we do not approve that recommendation, then the original person is a holdover.
I got you.
And that holdover person can be there for years upon years upon years, perpetuating some of the same problems that you're hoping to fix, or hindering a village's ability to bring in fresh
that is a big
ideas.
change, because for years it was the majority of the board appointed the people to the land use commissions.
Exactly.
So
yes.
that is nominated and appointed.
Yes.
So that's a big change in how this village has been governed. So I could understand the desire to change that. And as you say, it really isn't just up to the Board of Trustees. Now it's at the voters.
Yeah, and I really listened hard to the residents of the village who came in who appeared confused about what this actually meant. And I really respect the fact that they support the mayor and they want to encourage the mayor to do right by the village. And that's terrific that they can come in and do so. But at the end of the day, that support should be done in the voting booth. They should go out and show their support in that manner. Having public discourse or hindering the village from having a greater decision through a referendum, I think is a disservice for everybody. And so that was why I was in grand support of this, because of the fact that it puts...
At the end of the day, the voters have
yep,
the decision.
Absolutely.
Yes. It isn't something that the politicians did. And it always drives me crazy when you're on a local board and somebody calls you a politician.
Yep.
It's not like this is how we earn our living, and it's not like this is what we grew up wanting to be.
Exactly.
It's just it's just something that a vocation, an avocation that we tended to feel that we were good at and we could help people with.
Well, yeah, or there's a sense of duty, that you serve your community in a way that everyone gives back. There's always that saying,
Yeah.
it takes a community to raise a family,
Takes a
to raise a
village.
kid. It takes a village. Absolutely. Yeah.
Just let's talk about the other referendum for a minute. Now, there's another one about the village attorney. Now, this one I'm a little iffy on, but go let's see.
Yeah, so the idea here is very similar. And again, if you're going to do one, let's do the majority of these, right? And the village attorney.
But the mayor always appointed the village attorney.
Yes, and that's
With the approval of the board.
Yes, and that is still the case. What that does is it discourages discussions amongst the board to have various different discussions about critical matters that affect this village. When you have a mayor who has that much power over what the attorney can do, you are limiting the village's ability to protect itself. And when we look at what happens with lawsuits in the village and certain types of litigation that we've been encountering year after year, it's more challenging to bring on a third party or an expert in that matter when you have an appointed attorney that is dedicated to serving primarily the mayor, but then the rest of the board happens to be part of his duties as well.
Well, this is where, I have issue with this because the mayor, appoints the board, nominates the attorney, the board okays it, but he's then supposed to work for the whole board. He is not supposed to be the mayor's attorney. He's supposed to represent the village and the whole board. And when I was on a board, I understand the issue in spades. But when I was on a board, what we did was we took cases away from the village attorney and gave them to another attorney. And you're allowed to do that. You hire special counsel for things.
Yep. And we have.
And you have, but I think that's an effective tool, and it also it gets the village attorney's attention. It's Satchel Paige was a great pitcher in Major League Baseball, and he often stepped off the rubber, didn't throw over, just stepped off the rubber and just looked at the guy, and that would get the guy back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Sometimes you gotta throw one. You know what I mean?
And I'm not saying that Charlie is a bad village attorney.
I don't even want to get. I don't even want to get.
It's not a personal thing
I don't want
at
to get
all.
into this
It's
village
really
attorney, that village attorney.
it's the philosophy of having that flexibility and having that that comfort level that the person that you're bringing in to represent the village represents the entire village. The same reason why you want to be able to have appointees to the land use boards, represent the majority of the village's interest
that I
as well.
really am. I mean, the land use boards are things I'm keyed into, but I can go both ways with the mayor thing.
I don't
with the
disagree with you at all.
attorney, yeah.
I can totally go both ways on that too.
I don't know which way I'm going when I get in the booth on that one.
But again, since we're putting these referendums out there, let it be a voter's choice.
It's up to the voter.
Absolutely.
It's up to the voter,
Yeah.
and that is part of the job of both sets of candidates running in November,
Absolutely, yes.
to make that case. And you and I have both run in the village of Mamaroneck, and had communication and getting out and knocking on doors and making your case and going to debates are very important.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to watching the 6 candidates. Who are, I know them all; they're all good people. To have a spirited debate about this. But the village always. I'll tell you what. I like the town. I love the town, but the village is always interesting. It really is. It's
entertaining.
It's entertaining, but also because it's not as homogenous as the town, you get more interesting issues. And you get more interesting. I'm not going to say more interesting people, but you get more impassioned,
Spirited
people,
Yep.
and spirited.
Absolutely. Yep.
And there's part of me that misses that.
And I'll tell you but that's also what makes this village exciting and unique
Yes.
is that you have people who are spirited and passionate,
Yes.
who are bright,
It's
who
a
want
hoot.
to engage,
Yeah.
who care. And that's really an exciting part of this. And unfortunately, it can be construed as a negative. It can turn ugly, and it can become, a bad way to fester some of the issues. But it's okay to have discussions.
It is, and I know you didn't participate in this, but there's a lot of yelling back and forth on the board sometimes. It has to stop. It's not good for political discourse. It's not good for the public to see, and it doesn't help you make decisions that way.
Leadership is, a lot like, your parents or, people that you look up to who, what is that perception you want to give out to the world about who you are? And we have families, we have impressionable people. So, that's our duty.
Ilissa, thank you very much, and good luck in the future. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for
Thank you
coming
for
on
having
here
me.
tonight. And
Thank you.
we'll be seeing you around town.
All right, you got it.
This is good night until the next Tom Murphy Show. Take care.